in our reading of Matthew chapter 18 today, it's very clear that at this time there are some within this early Christian church, some who were Christians, who were doing things, were not sure what they were doing, that were leading little children astray. It's better for a millstone to be placed around your neck and thrown into the ocean than for one of the little ones to be led astray. That's how important this was. Evidently as well, there were problems with people who were doing certain things that were not good for them. Better that you would hack off a part of your own body and live than have to be assigned a punishment in Gehenna, given 2 arms, 2 legs, or 2 eyes. And so Matthew, as he writes his gospel, tries to remember all the times that he had heard Jesus speak about hell. Because what better motivation is there to get people to stop doing bad things than to tell them there's going to be a bad punishment? You've got to go to hell because of these bad things. I mean, what better way to keep people in line than to threaten them with Gehenna? I mean, it's Matthew's job here, isn't it? To literally scare the hell out of people. We like the idea of keeping people in line. We really do. We like the idea of using hell to change the behavior of people that are doing things that we don't like. Some of you remember, whether it was in high school or college, reading Jonathan Edwards' classic sermon, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. I mean, you read that and it creeps you out. It scares you. It scares me to death even now to read that sermon. The threat of hell is so powerfully presented that it renders anybody quivering loss, knowing that they are simply doomed to that fate. Some of you grew up in churches or went to revivals where fire and brimstone was the modus operandi, the way in which the gospel was communicated in order to scare people into heaven. The threat of hell has really been a useful tool that the church has used for so many years. But not only that, the Christian church has also used hell freely as a place where they condemn people that they don't like. I mean, I'm sure that you have heard the Christian church somehow point fingers at different classifications or different groups of people or a particular people and consign them, condemn them to hell for whatever reason. I mean, in my short lifetime, I've heard the Christian church condemn Roman Catholics to hell. I've heard the Christian church condemn the Viet Cong to hell. I have heard the Christian church condemn feminists to hell. I have heard the Christian church condemn homosexuals to hell. I've heard the Christian church condemn Mormons to hell. I have heard the Christian church condemn Muslims to hell. It simply never ends. There are some Christians who are more descriptive about who is in hell than who is in heaven. And I'm not one of those Christians. Do I think that there is a place of accountability? I do. I truly do. Do I believe that there is a place of punishment? Maybe so. Maybe Jesus, in line with those rabbis, were simply presenting to us how our lives have to now be accountable in a much more decisive way with God. Do I think that there is a place of eternal damnation? I frankly don't know. I hope not. And if there is a hell, I hope that nobody's there. I know at this point there are people who will want to argue for the necessity of hell. They would say, I mean, don't we want Hitler to be in hell? Don't we want Stalin to be in hell? Don't we want Timothy McVeigh to be in hell? Don't we want John Wayne Gacy to be in hell? Don't we want that terrible person that molested my children to be in hell? And it's really hard to argue people in this situation because I have the same desire as I'm sure many of you, and that is to see those terrible people pay for the terrible things that they have done to other people. I mean, I want to see those people suffer forever. But vengeance doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to you either. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And furthermore, we need to remember that we are a people of a faith who do not believe that by virtue of our good actions we can merit salvation. And so therefore, what makes us think that by virtue of our bad actions we would merit hell? Isn't the decision of our eternity something that God determines, not by what we do, but by what's inside of our heart? And ultimately, don't we believe in a God of grace? I mean, ultimately, isn't every one of our destinies made possible by the mercy of God and mercy alone? As difficult as it might be sometimes, it's nonetheless incredible for me to think that there, by the grace of God, would there be incredible good news of the worst sinner being in eternity because of God's incredible forgiveness. But all of this talk about who goes to heaven and who goes to hell seems to miss the point for me. That stuff belongs to God. I will let God determine the eternal destiny of everyone. Instead, it seems to me that there are plenty of instances where people are living in hell here on earth. I cannot help but think about the many families in Japan that have been affected by that earthquake and tsunami and who have lost everything. Lost everything. I mean, that must be hell. I cannot help but think about literally the thousands of Somalis who will die today because of starvation, because of 2 years of incredible drought and civil war. That must be hell. I cannot help but think about the wife who was beaten daily, physically, emotionally, sexually abused by her husband. That must be hell. I cannot help but think about the family who's lost everything, lost jobs, lost homes, lost dignity, lost hope. That must be hell. I cannot help but think about the husbands or the wives, the sons or the daughters who have to care every day, 24 hours a day, for a family member who has a debilitating disease, whether it's AIDS or depression or psychotic breakdown. That must be hell. I cannot help but think about the literally hundreds of children and women today in this world who will be sold into slavery. That must be hell. There is hell on earth. God has asked us to do something about it. Rob Bell has written a book entitled Love Wins. I don't think that there are a lot of pastors in this town who would encourage you to read this book, but I would. Our library has a copy, or you can get it on Amazon.com. In this book, Rob Bell notes that generally those who are arguing over the eternal destinies of deciding who goes to heaven and who goes to hell don't care much about people who are living in hell right now. Conversely, he says, those who have committed themselves to helping people who are living in hell have no time whatsoever to fight over the eternal destinies of people going to heaven or hell. My suggestion is that God has called us not to scare anyone into heaven, not to obsess over the ultimate outcome of human beings, and not to consign or condemn certain people that we do not like to the fires of eternal hell. Rather, my sense is that God has called us to make a difference with our lives with those who are living in hell right now. What are you doing to relieve somebody's hell? How can you make a difference? There is no end to the stories that you can read in the newspaper or watch on the evening news that would tell about the hell that people live with. There may be no loss of stories told by friends and neighbors, co-workers, about the glimpses of hell that they see in the lives of others. What do you do? What are you doing about it? I'd like to propose a challenge for you this week. That as you read that story or hear that story of someone's hellish existence, that you do something. Do something. I don't know what you do. Write a check, hug somebody, make a meal and deliver it, make a phone call. I don't know. But do something. Because the great news that I can share with you from a position of confidence and assurance of the gospel is that as we gather here this morning in the presence of God, surrounded by God's love and goodness, you do not need to worry about your ultimate destiny. Because God is present among you. God's love is holding you. God's promise of eternity is secure in you. There is probably no greater passage in all of the Bible, from my perspective, than Romans chapter 8, where Paul says to the Romans, nothing can separate you from the love of God. Nothing. Not fear, not intimidation, not calamity, not even hell. Nothing can separate you from God's love. It's in you. It resides in you. The divine, the holiness of God is a part of who you are. There is a piece of heaven inside of you. Now, go share that heaven with someone who lives in hell. Amen. The peace of the Lord be with you always. Thank you. I invite you to share the peace of Christ with those who are near you.